All right. It says that we're streaming now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to welcome everyone to our Gospel Music, The Path Forward Zoom and Facebook Live session presented by UCON. Thank you all for being a part of this session. We're going to talk about music production. I think you're going to find this very engaging. Going to share tips on music production. Got a lot of music producers and artists involved in this conversation. If you have any comments, for those on Zoom, post them in the chat, the group chat, please. Any comments and or questions. We're going to ask everyone, whether you're on Facebook, put it in the comment section. We'll take those questions, comments there as well. Want you to feel free to engage with us. Please share this link. If you have a Facebook page, a fan page, please like it. Please share it. And we just thank you for being a part of this session. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. I'm going to turn it over to this national recording artist, as well as minister of music. He is an extraordinary artist and just a wealth of knowledge, and always enjoy him being a part of our conversations and our dialogues. Turn it over to Charles Butler of Charles Butler and Trinity. Charles, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great.
Awesome, awesome. We have such a great array of different producers that's here with us today on this particular live. So I'm excited to hear from everyone. I'm not familiar with everyone, so I'm grateful that I'll be able to get to know everyone just a little more on this afternoon. So I'm going to let everyone pretty much give us a little background on themselves, and we can start from there because production is not my forte. So the good thing about this discussion is I'm coming from the artist perspective and you guys are coming from the production side. So we have Gregory Mitchell that has this wonderful studio background set up over there. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Gregory Mitchell, and I've done a lot of work with Pastor Timothy Wright, the late great Pastor Timothy Wright. And where production comes in for me is I go back to production back into the mid 80s. That's a long time. And actually in 1984, I purchased an Atari computer. And that Atari computer back then had MIDI. And from that day to this day, Pro Logic, which is what that was then and is what I use now, that's how I got started in production. I didn't know a lot about it, but you know, it's interesting because I prayed and asked God for something extra because I was around musicians that were better than me. So because they were better than me, I asked God, I said, God, I need something else. Not that I wanted to give up keyboard playing or singing or anything like that, but I just felt I needed something else other than just being able to play. So God dropped the spirit of technology, and many years later, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I thank God because he helped me to be this way and to become this person that I am today.
Amen. All right, thank you for that. And next we're going to have, and I just want to, is it Darren or Daron? I just want to make sure.
It's Darren.
Darren, we have Darren Tripp Thomas.
Yeah, my mom wasn't too good with vowels back in the day. The O is silent.
Got it.
I tease my mother all the time. I'm like, you need to get hooked on phonics, baby. But that's
so. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background?
My background. I'm originally from Washington D.C. area, born and raised. So my background didn't start off in the gospel aspect of recording. It actually started with for us was R&B, go-go, and jazz. So from there, I actually ended up being a music director at a very early age as a teenager, because in Prince George's County, we were lucky enough to have we were sponsored by PG County. We were actually a top 40 band And so that got me, I've been playing bass since the 70s. And so I ended up being a bass player, music director, and then I ended up joining the Air Force. And while in Okinawa, I ended up doing a recording session with a gentleman that happened to hear me play bass, and he wanted me to play bass in his studio in Okinawa. And I walked into all this beautiful equipment in this control room on this tiny island, and everything was in Yamaha and everything was written in Japanese. So through language barrier, I ended up getting into the engineering aspects of everything, mainly to become a better producer. So from there, ended up moving to Greensboro after I got out the Air Force, and ended up getting hired as an assistant engineer at Ultimix in the 90s. And what's really crazy is my first session was to do editing for Shirley Caesar. So the good thing about it was I wasn't, given if I had a more gospel background, I would have been completely intimidated, but I wasn't. And I knew who she was, and I had a great respect for her history, but I wasn't as familiar as, say, somebody that grew up in the church. And that ended up solidifying my relationship in the studios with a lot of gospel artists. I ended up working with a lot of gospel artists, and from churches to new artists to seasoned professionals. It's carried me through a lot of different things, a lot of different music, a lot of different genres within gospel, from contemporary to quartet. So, and now I run my own studio and production facility in Greensboro, and that's the shortened version of everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And let's go to Brother Chris Bird.
Hey everybody, Chris Bird from Toledo, Ohio. I've been working in the music industry for a number of years. Started back in the late 80s, early 90s. Produced my first CD, I think in 1991, and been working ever since, working strong, writing and producing from that point on. Also produce and write for the Rance Island Group. I've been doing that for probably, maybe 30 years, maybe. It's been a long time, and had a chance to work with a lot of artists. Worked with and produced for Keith Dobbins and the Resurrection Mass Choir back in the day, and just had a chance to really work with a lot of people. So I'm excited to just be amongst you all, and just to be able to share knowledge and wisdom and some of our experiences. I started back when we were doing tape, 2-inch tape. We were doing 1/2-inch tape, all of that stuff. And so that was my start. We went from there to the ADATs and all of that. So I started working on a PC desktop, and now I finally got saved, and I'm working on a Mac. Yeah, so that's my experience, and I'm just, it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey, but everything has changed now, so it's gonna be interesting to hear what you all think. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Where we've been and where we're going.
All right, and we have Brother. Is this James Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, how you doing? Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm an artist, and
Okay.
I'm here to gain more insight on the production side of it. Of course, my producer was on a minute ago. I don't know what happened to him, Willie Hill. He's been
He's
well,
on here.
okay. Okay. I didn't know he was on here or not, but yeah, I'm an artist. We got a new package is be out next week. A new EP that'll be out next week, so we're excited about that. I work for UPS. I've been employed there for almost 20 years, and I'm looking to retire and get out of that truck and do something I enjoy.
All right, so since you talked about Brother Willie Hill, we can have him go next. So Brother Hill, could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I started actually back in the 70s. I was a bass player originally, and I was signed with a group called the Modulations out of Durham, and we were signed to Buddha Records in the 70s. So we had an album out called It's Really, Really Rough Out Here, and did a Soul Train appearance in 1975. Then I opened up a studio in Durham, Inspired Productions, and I was there for like 22 years. And I worked with a lot of UNC students, Duke students, Hayti students. I even taught a few semesters at North Carolina Central. I was as a music production, and I'm also an artist myself. I'm a jazz artist. I have 8 albums out, smooth jazz albums. And I also had the opportunity to work with Shirley Caesar on a couple of projects too. And I have a studio here now in Raleigh. And I've worked with Gerald Hinton too. I don't know whether you know him or not, but I've traveled extensively out of the country for a few years and came back, and I'm in Raleigh, and I'm set up here, and I'm producing a lot of gospel artists myself, and just trying to learn all of whatever I can learn here and pick up some knowledge.
All right, thank you so much. And we have Brandon Macklin, who's on as well. There he is. Hey, how you doing?
Hey everybody, my name is Brandon Macklin. I'm very
I think you have okay, he's having some sound challenges.
but a little background about myself is I'm from PG County, which is Washington area. My dad.
Your phone's breaking up just a little bit. Can you hear me?
Oh, it is. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm so sorry. So this is better.
No, it's fine. It's that Sprint demon over there. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, man. Okay, I'm gonna come back to you.
You start saying that, I came right back in.
Because right now on my screen you're paused, so I'm gonna wait till I can see you moving a little bit. So Sylvia, I know you don't do production, but you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yes. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm a nurse by profession. I'm actually a nursing leader. I've managed and I've directed groups of 200 plus nursing leaders, other nursing leaders and other nurses. Enjoy what I do, but I have a great passion. I've been singing since I was 5 years old. I also play the piano and I write music. I've got so I'm a artist on the side. It's actually my ministry. And really love what I do. I've actually in production now doing an album, my first album. I've written all the songs, all 10 songs, and working on that Christmas CD that we've been talking about doing. So I'm starting to work on that. We're waiting for that project, this project to get off the ground. Hopefully by January or February it will be out. And just love performing. I also sing in the praise and worship team, and also run the cameras on the praise and worship team as well. So kind of do a little bit of everything when I'm not nursing during the daytime.
Awesome. All right. And we have Angela Billers. I know she's calling in. She's an artist herself. And Angela, if you want to just kind of chime in and tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hey everybody, it's Angela Missy Billups, and as Charles said, I am an artist myself. We do have a pretty much amazing entertainment, which is our family business, where my son is a producer of many artists, and it's pretty in-house business, and he produces me as well, and even my daughter, who just released her first new single, so we're excited about that. I think that's it.
All right. And so I'm gonna come back to Brandon. Brandon, let's see if if it's working, and then I'm gonna open up the discussion.
How's this? Is this working good?
Yep, you're working all right.
Awesome.
Okay. I think that demon got a hold of you again. So I know a little bit about Brandon. I'm going to just go through a few bullet points. Brandon is my musical director. He's done work for J.J. Harrison on he did production work on the "You Deserve It" album.
And from there, I got into music later on.
It's a delay with your phone. I know he's on the road. He's also worked with Donnie McClurkin. He plays with does some work with Donnie McClurkin. And,
I'm gonna call right back in, Charles.
Okay. And Chris Daltrey. But I'm gonna get started and have him. He'll come back in. So one of the things I wanted to talk about production-wise, one of the things that I'm noticing from an artist perspective with working with producers, with a lot of up-and-coming producers, I don't think they really know how to gauge their rates. There's really no definitive way to answer this. Everyone has an opinion. I believe market value plays a lot when anybody has a rate. I don't care whether you make a painting or if you're making a doorknob. Market value plays a part in how much you should charge. If we can just have a discussion about that for up and coming producers or musicians that are just starting, that are saying, I need $20,000 to produce a record. So let's just have that discussion in terms of how you possibly should gauge your rates when taking on a client.
Please let me be first.
Okay.
The reason why I want to be first and open this discussion, because I understand what it is to be old school and new school. With that being said, old school, we came up a different way. And we came up when there was no pay or very little pay. So we had a love for what we did, whether that was on the performance end or the production end or just learning how to engineer. That's just how it was. New school, it's like they come up in an era when everything is about money. It's unfortunate, but it's very true. So a lot of times and then the incredible part is they think gospel money and R&B money or pop money is the same money. And it's not the same money. Not only that, it's a difference between how things were prior to 9/11 than it is now. After 9/11, record sales dropped. So because when record sales or CD sales dropped, that was this whole nother era that came about as far as like the EP market and the single market and Apple Music. I mean, it's a whole situation because so now everything is about streaming, unfortunately. So because it's about streaming and not about CDs, you make less money unless you are a pop artist or possibly a popular R&B artist. So so that's kind of why it is. And I just wish that some of the new school guys, they would really understand that they could get longevity out of being fair financially, because a lot of times, yeah, I'll use you, if you're great, I'll pay you what you want, but I may not pay you again. I'll pay you the first time, but if we haven't created a relationship, then it's called, it's a situation where you're just working for hire. And I rather work for relationship. If I work for relationship, then I'm going to cut my price down a lot to gain that relationship. So over the years, we can record more and more and do more things.
That's a great point. Awesome perspective. Really quickly, Brandon, I know you just came back in. You can unmute. It looks like you may be okay. Brandon?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
I hear you now.
Great.
Are you okay? So can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. So we go back to the introduction. Go ahead and introduce yourself really quickly.
My dad started playing drums at my dad's church, the Berkeley College of Music, studied music production and engineering. I produced my first album with J.J. Harrison, You Deserve It. Records and currently American Idol. So I'm happy to be.
Yeah, it's pausing again.
Thank you.
So we'll come back to Brandon. So if anybody else want to chime in on the particular question, that'd be great. Go ahead.
I can talk about what Mr. Mitchell was on, because the understanding that the old school, new school, as I always tell people, I'm an analog man in a digital land, because what I end up having to do is you can only base your skills based upon your experiences. The longer you play in the game or play in the field or music business, your experiences become invaluable to you in terms of how people interpret what you do. For me, it had been trying to find that sweet spot as far as how much getting paid. A lot of it for me had to do with the end goal, the area that you're living in, the context that you make. You don't want to put yourself out there so far that you don't make a profit. Luckily for me, after all these years, I have a very great entertainment attorney. And how I generally set things up is I'll do first of all, I find out what the person's budget is, all right? And then from that point, if their budget is below my standard, then what I end up doing is that I do a contract as a producer to catch it on the back end. Especially if I know that they are really, like if the song is really good and the artist is really good, then, you know, sometimes you have to step back and not think about the upfront money and think about the back end. A lot of times, if it might not do anything, you might make X amount of money plus the back end. If they don't want to do anything, then you can charge them more and just give them what they want and walk away. Either way, you're still getting an income for your work, and don't ever, once you know you're pretty comfortable with what you're doing, don't sit there and limit your standard, because you will get people that will challenge that. In my experience, I've seen a lot of producers that have messed people over and end up coming to my studio, and I will cut them a break, because I'm end up, as Mr. Mitchell said, I have a relationship now. So now I can take off a few dollars, because in the long run, I'm going to end up making more money in the long term with this particular artist, with this particular person. Same with being a musician, with particular musicians that I work with, that are eager to work in the studio, and I make sure they get paid. A lot of times I might end up not making any money necessarily, long as the end result is that the client is happy. If the client is happy, they're going to come back, and then you start building from there.
And could you reiterate for me really quickly when you say back end, just in case there is a person that don't understand that in terms?
Okay, back end, okay, is producers get points, all right? And the points is based off percentages. Usually your 3 points is equal to 15%. And as it goes up, the percentage goes up. So say if I say I want somebody that just their first release, I say, okay, look, I'm gonna put some numbers out there. Say, pay me $3,000 and we walk away and I do everything I need to do for you and the track is yours. Back end is, okay, now you pay me 600, give me 15%, and then if the song sells, then I'm still getting residual income based upon that. So there's different ways you can go about it that makes it a win-win for everybody at the end of the day. And that's what because you don't want to discourage anybody based upon money. And I see a lot of people that do that, or they'll get this, for lack of better words, they become arrogant and say that, you know, I'm better than that, you know, and I'm not better than anybody, because an artist can walk in and do something on Fruity Loops that'll blow my mind. And it's like, okay, it sounds great, you know. And I always try to tell people not to go into something else in terms of pay. You know, learn your equipment, you know. But
Also,
but the thing is, as far as the back end, that's just getting your money on the residual income based upon the production agreement that you make. That's what the back end
do you
is.
determine back end whether the artist is signed or unsigned? I know some producers don't want to do back end deals with independent artists because there's really no way to track sales.
If you get an entertainment attorney, there's a thing called an IRSC number. Once you have that in your contract, that tracks the track. So even with the independent artists, if they're going to go to TuneCore, they go through Spotify, this or another, there's somebody tracking that music, and that's how you get.
I know tracking it radio wise. I'm talking about tracking it sales wise. So
you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, so you're talking about radio wise, the 15%, and not sales wise.
Actually, in your contract as a producer, it can stipulate all forms of media outlet. Internet sales, it can be CD sales, it could be anything. If somebody's going to put something out there legally, first of all, Uncle Sam's going to make sure he's going to get what he's supposed to get. So you make sure you get what you're supposed to get. So right. If they're not going to even deal with you on that level in terms of putting something out, even if it's just they put it on TuneCore and TuneCore puts it on everything else, you know, somebody's tracking that, you know, and then you have your publishing companies, which, you know, if you BMI or ASCAP, somebody is always tracking something. If you put something out there as an artist and you don't do that, you're doing yourself a disservice in the first place, because why are you putting it out there? Just so everybody can hear you? And you can go on SoundCloud and hear 50 million people giving stuff out for free. Yeah, so.
Right. All right. And Linda says that we have a question from Facebook.
Yeah, we have a comment from Lena Arnold. She's saying, so many artists really don't see themselves as others do. Sometimes the talent isn't as marketable as others. So, you know, I want to see what you all say. That's kind of, you know, to a degree what, you know, what Trip was saying there, but any comments or thoughts about that?
That's a whole nother topic for another day.
Right.
I'm gonna say what a wise man told me one time: know your ministry and know that you're called to it. Because unfortunately, just because you can sing, that don't mean you're called to minister. Just because you can produce, that don't mean you're really called to be a renowned producer. So sometimes you just have to be real sure of your calling.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to expound on that?
I want to kind of go back to just the industry as far as producing and the you know, financial part of it. For one, you know, the reality is sales ain't what it used to be. You know, nobody's buying CDs like they used to. You don't see CDs in the stores like they used to. So there's not that money that used to be made, you know, isn't there anymore. And so a lot of it is where what I do, I mean, you know, the money that I used to get, I may not be able to get that same budget on certain projects. But, you know, I'm always flexible, and depending on who the artist is, if I know they're going to do well, hopefully I can get some publishing from the writer. Of course, I automatically got that, you know. So anything I'm producing, I try to, you know, get writer credit as well on that, so that, you know, and that way I can be a little flexible as far as my production fee when it comes to that. But you know, there's a lot to it, and you're not seeing those sales. You're not seeing mechanical royalties like you used to, even as a writer. It's more so streaming and it's performance royalties. So my biggest royalties right now is performance royalties. Whereas I used to get mechanical royalties, you know, I can always look every quarter and look for a few $1,000s, or sometime if it's something big, you know, it could be up over 10, you know, but right now that's not happening. And it's a totally different season, totally different time. You know, years ago, but this is we're here now, and so it's just totally different. So we got to be flexible, and we can't, you know, just overcharge people for something that we know that it's not there, you know.
And I see Angela has her digital hand up.
Yes, I do. I do. I want to ask the producers, because I do know quite a bit of producers. And does it really matter to you when you're producing for an artist where the song is going to go? As far as, like, I have a good friend, and I know when he produces for artists, when you're filling out for him to do production for you, he wants to understand what's your vision for the song, like where's it gonna go, you know, what platforms, or, you know, what are you going to do with the song other than just have me do it and take it outside of my studio. And the person is Jules. He's a great producer, but he definitely, when you go to him, he wants to know, okay, what are you going to do with the song after I finish with it? So
That's very important. I'm
so
sorry.
is that really important to the producers?
Yes, that's very important, because, you know, is it a song that most churches will sing? So, you know, he has to know that, so that it will be more effective in that arena. If it's going to be something that's just going to get airplay, or even for if you want secular airplay, if you want it to cross over, you know, or what audience are you actually singing before right now? You know, what type of crowds are you singing to? And those are important things, because you want to be effective as you go out to minister and reach those crowds. And you want to make sure that the sound, the song, and what it's saying and how it's presented all fits that criteria. So,
But
yeah.
so the producer, it's important to you guys, but so that because your name is on it, or because you get the perks, or it makes you look good, or I'm just trying to understand why producers are concerned.
Well, it's going to not only make the producer look good, it's going to make you look good. Anything I put my name on it, I want it to look good and to sound good. It's got to be, you know, up to a certain standard. And, you know, if it's not really, it all falls on the producer.
Oh,
you
gotcha.
know? So a lot of times I hear artists put something out and it's really not quite up to par. It really is. In my first question is, who produced this? You know, because a lot of times artists may go in the studio and they don't really understand how important the producer is. They might just go in there and think the engineer is supposed to tell them, you know, produce them or tell them how to sing or how to do this. And that's not the engineer's job. It's the producer's job.
And Mr.
And so
I will capitalize on that real quick, is the fact that I'm an engineer as well as producer, and those roles and even the pay is completely different. If I'm coming to do a job that I'm just engineering, I'm just engineering. If I'm just doing I'm mixing. Mixing is completely separate from engineering. And I don't do mastering, but the people that do mastering do mastering. But what they got to understand is that each one of those jobs is an income stream at some point. And which is that, you know, everything that you do, whether I'm a bass player, I'm playing bass from someplace, or I'm playing bass at a church, or if I'm doing live sound, which I've done live sound, if I'm doing DJ, if I'm doing engineering work or doing production work, those are all income streams that come in.
Gotcha.
But the producer is responsible for everything that happens on that record.
Yes.
The producer is responsible for how you sound. If you ain't singing right, then it falls on the producer to get you right. And if it ain't right, it's the producer's fault. That's the responsibility that the producer has.
Okay.
And his or her reputation is extremely important for them to still be viable in the business. I mean,
right.
Like Cedric Thompson, he's based down in Charlotte, and I've known Cedric for years. And when he did for TD Jakes, he did Lady, the Lover, and the Lord. You know, that alone, because of who it came from, ended up commanding him a nice price tag for any artist that he worked with from that point forward. So, you know, at certain points, he was making $12,000-$15,000 just in production. You know, but that was 20 years ago. So, you know, what he has to do now, based upon that reputation that he has established for himself, you know, if he were to come out and put something that was subpar, then he's ineffectively destroying his brand, and nobody wants to do that.
And
Then I think from the artist perspective, the producers also want, like, one of the questions, you as an artist, I'm doing this song for you, what is your marketing stream? How are you, you know, I'm gonna have this song banging. Now, how are you gonna get it out? What's your tool? What's your strategy after you take this song? So I think that's their concern, especially if they have great work.
Yeah.
And also in the chat, I see someone said, should that be understood by the artist and be in writing? I think at this point, everything should definitely be in writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
You can't move into a house or an apartment without that lease or that mortgage agreement. You're bonded, and the people that wrote it are bonded as well. It's twofold.
And another thing also is for producers or anybody that's working in music. You know, I know a lot of times as artists, we feel like, you know, we got this music, we love it, but you always want to be open to somebody else's critique, and we got to be able to take critique or criticism, constructive criticism, whether it's, you know, even me as a producer, I don't put nothing out without letting a team of people hear it. Okay. The first people that's going to hear is my wife and then my kids. If it gets past them, then I'll let some other people hear it. I'll put some professional ears on it. But I don't let, even to this day, as long as I've been doing this, I don't let nothing go out unless I let certain ears hear it. And if they say, nah, you shouldn't do that, or, you know, then it ain't going nowhere. And so, you know, I just have that because I think that's so important. Sometimes people put things out and it's just not right. Or, you know, even when I'm mixing, because I do engineer, write, produce, and mix. I do all of that. So a lot of times, I guess I got that from, you know, once I'm mixing, that's when I really let people hear it and get a lot of ears on that. So that's so important for everybody to make sure that you let people hear and let people critique you. And I appreciate, you know, especially in my younger years as working in the industry, I've had people tell me, no, don't do that. Don't put that out, or this ain't right. You need to do this, or you need to do that, you know? So I appreciate that. And I think everybody needs to do that.
That's Chris, that's called that Motown. That's that Motown method, you know?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Do you think it's important for producers to know how radio works? Like what radio is looking for, etc.?
Well, you know what? I think that's twofold. I think that's twofold. The reason I say it's twofold is because a lot of times as a producer or a writer, sometimes we are given this God-given song idea. And most of the time, if it's God-given, we feel that, well, some of us, because everybody don't come from a place of commercialism, okay? And I have to say it like that. And the reason I say commercialism is because a lot of people, they write songs, but they necessarily don't write songs for radio play, or they don't write songs for people to sing at church, or they don't write, you know, people write songs for different reasons sometimes. Like the story of Prince is like all the Prince early music was for him, and then kind of like the people caught on. But my point is, it's a situation where I believe if God gives you a great song, then the radio definitely can get to it. But also from an industry point, it has to be sonically correct. It has to be mixed properly. It has to be in a particular time. You know, a lot of times when I do songs, Chris, you know, we all love the flow, but we can't put the flow on the record because they're not going to put the flow on the radio. So sometimes them
Right.
songs that's like over 430, we got to kind of leave them off. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Mm-hmm.
we got to be very,
Yeah.
very conscious about that. So um, I'm just saying, Charles, definitely, yeah, you have to have some sense of radio, especially if you want your song to be on radio.
Because I know some producers, they're not familiar with what time like radio edits possibly should be. So I think just some things are necessary sometimes when you, especially if you having them do your radio edit and the radio edit is 5 minutes. We clearly know that may not be played. So I think there needs to be some level of awareness as to how radio works in some capacity.
Absolutely.
Chris, you want to say something?
Yeah, Linda, I just got a text. There's people that's trying to leave comments on Facebook, but I guess they can't. And I don't know if they got to be friended or if it's made public or if it's just on the friends list, but they can't.
Yeah, they
comment.
do. So tell them to send me a friend
They
request.
they
so
did
can
that,
do that.
so they're
Okay,
waiting for
I'll
you.
do it then. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is the broadcast public or private?
It's public.
It's public, but they still do have to be a friend.
And
So I'll
also,
definitely, I'll get them.
Chris, if you post it on your page,
Yeah,
then they could answer some stuff from there from your page.
yeah, I got it on both of my pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do think like I said before, having some sense of how it works. If you're producing for an artist that's seeking some type of radio success. Now, let me ask you this: from the flip side of that is, how do you handle an artist that may come to you for production that you know don't have what it takes? Period. Do you just take their money, or do you still produce for them? At this point, is it now a job? Are you just going to just take the money, or are you going to have an honest conversation?
I got to start. The reason why I like to start these conversations off because I like to get my opinion out the way and then let y'all have the rest. Okay, so now here's the interesting thing, Charles. I've had this on both spectrums, which means I've had the artists that could sang, I mean, really, really great. But when it came down to the business, it was not good. Then I had the artists that could not sing as good. Now, thank God for auto-tune. And thank God for Melodyne. And thank God for wave tune. Thank God for all of these from a perspective where if somebody got to sound real bad for you not to make them sound good. You understand what I'm saying? They have to sound real bad for you not to make them sound good. So my point is, if they sound good, then you can make them sound better once in the studio with a lot of tools. But if they sound bad, then yeah, there's nothing you can do. And here's the deal. If somebody come to me and they really sound that bad, I'm gonna tell you what I do. I try to marry them with a vocal coach. I have some artists right now that I'm working with, and you know, potentially great songwriters. So I asked them, okay, do you want to write songs or do you want to be an artist? So they said, well, I want to be an artist. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I want you to get in contact with this person and this person. They're vocal coaches. So before I even go to the studio to record them, go get some vocal coaching, classes or vocal coaching lessons before we even go into the studio, because that can be a headache.
Chris?
Well, okay. Can I go next?
Yeah.
Some, it depends on how bad it is, but there's some people that just don't have it. If they're that bad, I can't, I'm not going to put my name on it. I'm not going to touch it. And I'll let them know this ain't your ministry, and I don't want them to put themselves out there. I don't want them to waste their money on something that, it ain't them. So I'm gonna be honest with them. And, if they just really want to do it, I may send them to somebody else that's just going to record them as an engineer. Matter of fact, I had somebody, this is when we had a studio downtown, and somebody just wanted me to engineer a project. But, I kind of, after a while, it's like, I can't take it. My ears can't take it. And so I had brought another guy in, to engineer. It's like, man, if you want to make some extra money, here you go, you can have it, but I just can't do it. But
does it matter how much money is?
It wasn't that much money anyway. But if it was, yeah. Now that's a whole nother issue. If it's just something, if I'm engineering and I got to sit through that, I'm gonna charge you more money. But I don't want my name on it. Not as a producer, especially, and people know me as a producer, so I almost don't want it on there as an engineer, because they look at my name and think that carries weight, and I don't want that. So.
Yeah, we had a discussion on a live I did with Fred Jerkins, myself, and Brandon was on there, and Fred Jerkins basically said that he had an artist that he worked with. They paid him $250,000. And he said, I put Melodyne all over that voice.
Of course. Yes, Lord. Look.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. First of all,
$250,000.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to turn down money.
Right.
So if the price is right, yeah, open curtain number 1. Let's go.
That's right. That's right. You do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Now what Linda said, Brandon, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I think, and we all kind of touched on this earlier, but I think this is where the different roles and responsibilities of a producer can kind of come in handy. Whereas we all can decide not to produce, but we can consult and give the record to someone who we might be mentoring, or someone who's up and coming, and take on the project from that perspective. That way our name really isn't on it. We are mentoring someone and giving someone an opportunity. Because I understand, the money is great, but my name means so much more to me than the money. And I've been in both situations, and I've regretted producing a song where the vocalist or the artist just wasn't super sweet. What I did was I had her exhort.
Okay, I had her exhort.
Instead of sing it, just so we can get. You can find different ways. You can find different ways to get through the song, but and just like I said, we touched on it earlier, but there are different ways that we can contribute to a song without being the producer, or without being the guy, the man that has to.
Brandon, you were doing so good. You were doing so good, man. Okay, your phone going back out again. So we did have another question, Linda. You said there was another question from one of the people on Facebook.
Yeah, shout out from Martin Christie. who's a producer out of New York. He's saying, hey, they definitely some knowledge of radio because most artists don't know the difference between commercial radio and crossover.
That's very true. That's very true. Question I do have is, what happens when a artist says that they want a song like someone?
I'll go first
Because
again.
you know, and this happens especially with record companies when they go to producers. When there's a particular sound that's popular, we know right now the praise and worship sound is popular. So at this point, choirs that sing with full-fledged vibrato that are churchy will go out and record a praise and worship song to get a quote unquote top 10 hit. What do you do when someone wants a song like someone and you know that's not, that it's probably not the best for them?
Well,
Do
let me
you
say
still
this.
try to make it their own, or do you advise
Yeah,
them?
you know what,
Okay.
Charles? Yeah, actually, that's what you do. Like, I run into so many people and songwriters, singers and songwriters, who sometimes when they bring me a song, you know, they'll tell me. They said, you know, this is what I heard when I wrote the song. So I quickly try to assess what that is, and I quickly try to create some type of originality on it, because you know, of course, if you don't put a little originality on it, it would just be a song that sounds like that particular song. So it's easy to do that, and it's easy to fall into that radio way as well. You know, just like you said, you know, there's a lot of label situations. Yeah, they want a song like this artist, they want a vibe like this artist. But I often say that, you know, God deals in color. He just doesn't deal in black and white. So what that mean is, because he deal in color, you know, he loves variety. There is so much variety in gospel music. There's so much variety in Christian music. So with that variety, we don't have to sound the same. We can sound different. You know, life don't have to be this music, and even the music in this time. One of the reasons why choir music is so missing is because choir music had more than 3 chords in it, and a lot of praise and worship got 3 chords in it. I don't have a problem with the 3 chords, but God has given us more than 3 chords.
Yeah. And then I also think a lot of times people, since quote unquote a lot of the bigger stations phase the choir out, and now that's the popular thing. These choirs are now trying to get that particular sound. So a lot of times we try to go with what's popular, and it may not be good for us, but we'll still try to go with what's popular. So I think it's twofold with what you said, and also what we hear. So what we hear sometimes can spill over into our Sunday worship experiences, especially when you have pastors who want top 40 music, and the top 40 is praise and worship, and you got to give the pastor what they want. Then we're forced. It's just this battle between, you know, all of that. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
Another conversation.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm starting to hear sometimes is that writers are taking phrases from already popular songs and putting kind of lines in songs and getting away with it, if that makes sense. So sometimes there's not a sense of originality. So I don't know, it's this one particular artist that is not a non-gospel artist who John P. Key was suing for life in favor, because she basically took his melody. Chris Bird, you smiling, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. She took his melody, and her song blew up. It's like a huge R&B song, maybe a top 10 over in R&B. She made an astronomical amount of money. And all she literally, from my opinion, took literally, and they played both songs, same key, same melody. She took the lyrics, changed it, and put it up. What do we say to people who sometimes are taking lines from songs and kind of just not being original with what they're presenting? I think that's kind of dangerous, but it happens a lot in gospel.
Do it at your own risk. I mean, I hate to say it like
sometimes
that.
people think they're not going to get caught.
I hate to say it like that, but here's the deal. Like, in this day and time, people are intelligent and people are smart and people are savvy. With that said, if you try that, you could be sued, point blank, period. And that's why, just like I said earlier, it is so important that any artist that I work with, and just like you said, Chris, any situation that my name is on, I try to make it as original as possible, because if it's an original work, or I mean, it could have my style, but it don't necessarily have a Kirk Franklin style, or anybody that's popular, Donnie McClurkin style, or whatever the case may be. It may have elements of that, but it can't be totally what that is.
Right.
That's right. That's right. So I think originality is really, really important, and we have to keep it. It's really an art form that's going away, originality, because we're trying to be like what's popular and what we keep seeing on the top 40, or trying to get that hit. And so many times it's frustrating to artists, because when you try to be authentically you, sometimes it doesn't get the support. And then when you try to go into the format, and I've heard artists had the discussion, they will release a single that's kind of different, they don't get the support. But then when they release the simple call and response praise and worship song, that song is the song to chart. So that's another thing. How do we feel about this era of everything, just the whole praise and worship feel of everything kind of being the same?
I'll let somebody else start with that. I can start, but I'll let somebody else start.
Can you hear me?
Well, was somebody else going?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Well, I'm Charles. I'm from New Orleans, and I've been in the gospel frame for a long time, about 30 plus years as a musician. And I'm just getting into basically the artist and a producer type role, and I'm getting my foot wet. That's why I was quiet and just sucking up a lot of information. But I've been seeing a lot of stuff that it always been repeated. That's where we get it from grandma, and grandma got it from somewhere. So a lot of the gospel music has always been repeated. You know what I mean? So the thing of it is that it was just been in church. And now since social media and this pandemic happened, it has to be a lot of things you hearing that just been inside the church house. Is that understandable?
Yeah, I got you.
So now I feel as though as a like I'm working on a project myself, and I'm working on getting artists, and I'm getting my feet wet, y'all, for real. But I'm seeing what y'all saying. Can we as a producer help the artist with the word, like with the word patterns, if they come with a sentence and that sentence might be already out here, that we already saying, can we actually help that person get better wording in a wording process, instead of just using it as, or actually connect with the person that they actually getting a line from, and see if about time it can correspond with it, to try to stop all that Sue stuff.
Yes, if there's something that you as a producer hear in the song where the wording should be different or could be better, that's your job to speak up. Now, if you need to change something, but then if you're not the writer, then at that point you may become collaborators on that song, where you would get a piece of that song as far as a writer. And me, most of the time when I'm producing something, I'm usually a writer, or if I didn't write the song, I'm usually collabing on it as well, because a lot of times you know, like you said, you're not really totally happy with the direction of the song. So I usually have to give my input just to make it me. And so that's usually what I do.
And that's what I'm basically coming. That's my aim at it, is try to collaborate with, like I heard about the seminars that like if somebody don't know how to sing, I'm actually coming in that type of way of, okay, let's grab that person, let's work with them, let's see how we can make them happen. If it's 30 days, 90 days, that way right there. So yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
Well,
say something?
I want to. Oh, my bad, guys. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to say something. I'm coming from R&B background. It's sort of like a smooth jazz background, but I want to just make a comment on the originality part that you were talking about. Now, this is just a question I want to ask. Now, if you are going to try to stay current with the sound that's out there now, what happens once that sound dies? You die along with it, don't you? So my thing would be, if you're original, then you're pretty much kind of out front. Because if you just watch the market in any market, whether it's R&B, jazz, gospel, whatever, it changes over time. But someone has to change it.
Well, here's the deal. Let me answer that for you, Willie. What happens is artists that are copycats,
Mhm.
they stay current because they're always continue to copy. You
Well,
understand
yeah,
what I'm saying?
but that's not really original though, right?
No. Well, here's the deal. It can be original. It can be original as far as style is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be an original. It can be original as far as their style, and it can be. But if they're copycatting the whole, like if we were back in the New Jack Swing era, and they was copycatting the New Jack Swing era, and they couldn't come out of that, then that's you know what I'm saying, that's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But from a smooth jazz point of view, you always got longevity because, you know, as a smooth jazz artist, you always go with the trends. So whatever's trending as a smooth jazz artist or instrumentalist, you always trend.
Right. And
Or the
me as an
popularity.
artist coming from recording from back in, you know, in the early 90s, every time I record, you know, even though things or styles have changed, you know, I always try to keep up with what's going on without losing my own identity and my own sound.
Right. Yes.
And same with Rance Allen, with the Rance Allen group. You know, he's been doing this since the early 70s. And so, you know, when we work on a project, you know, I mean, he still has his identity, but we always try to keep that music current with what's going on today. We might give him, you know, and Rance is very versatile, and I'm very versatile as well as far as, you know, my style. So we try to keep, you know, all of those styles in projects that we produce, but without losing the identity of the artist. And that's very important.
Well, it's interesting, Chris, because that kind of takes me back to when I played for Timothy Wright in the 90s. When I played for Timothy Wright in the 90s, of course, Trouble Don't Last Always, you know, that was recorded, you know, back in the 80s, the late 70s, like the 80s. So in order, you know, and that was one of his most popular songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make the music current, you know, the more engagements we had. I wanted to say the gig shows, but engagements we had. I had to make sure that music stayed current. So a lot of times we would put in some of the latest trends of music just to make sure that it relevant, you know, it kind of related to the audience, and it worked. Even the song that he did, I know somehow, I know some way we're gonna make it. We put he allowed, and thank God for the memory of Pastor Timothy Wright. He allowed us to take his music and really do some great things with it, because we put on the end of that music, I think I put like a Mary J. Blige twist to it, and he was with it. But because of that, it kept him. It definitely kept him, you know, it just kept him right there with the times.
Right.
Kept them relevant.
Right.
Relevant,
Right,
yes, that's it.
Yeah, because on the Hosanna, on Kirk Franklin Hosanna song, we put a little Kim dun 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 dun, just to, just on a time and that time of era. That was like about 10 years ago, but at the same time, it was just how to get people in tune to that point of time, keep them hyped, selling.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I tell.
I think something that we're kind of discussing, but kind of needs to be defined, is exactly what is the role and the responsibility of the producer. And I say that because I think we're all talking about the different ways that we enhance the song, whether it's in arrangement status, or it's in writing and publishing, or it's in engineering. And I believe that all these questions are answered when we can truly define what the role and the responsibility of a producer is. Now, this is Brandon's definition of it, is the definition or the chief responsibility of a producer is to manage a song from genesis to distribution. And by managing it, it means making that song fit the artist the way that the artist intends to be presented to their audience. And I say that because talking about like the current trend of music and like the praise and worship thing, and we're kind of getting into this like worship, or the gospel world is like really taken from the worship world. We're doing the four chords and kiss the presence of Jesus kind of music, and I think that's great. Don't get me wrong. I think it all has its power. But at the end of the day, songs are written, in my opinion, songs are written for three chief reasons. Songs are written for style. Songs are written for the A singer, or songs are written inspired by a sound. And I think it's the producer's responsibility to make all of those things inside of whatever songs are submitted to the artist. It's the producer's job to make that one song fit that one artist in all three of those bubbles. And so that becomes a piece of the management, where who are you hiring to play? Who are you hiring to mix? Who are you hiring to sing? Where are you recording this? What tones are you using? How many singers are you using? Are you going to use 3 singers, or are you going to use a choir? You know what I'm saying? All these things go into really making sure that it works the way that it's supposed to work, for the artist to have the greatest impact. So that was something that I just wanted to throw that out there, because it really matters when the producer knows his responsibility. And our responsibility as a producer is to manage the process of a song from genesis to its distribution for the world to hear.
It's powerful.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that a little earlier, where the producer's responsibility is to oversee everything and to manage everything. Everything that happens, it falls on the role of the producer. And if something's wrong, then it's his fault. So, we kind of covered that a little bit earlier.
Got a couple of comments want to share from Facebook, and thank you all for leaving those comments in Facebook if you have any. Janice Burt Sr., thank you for being a part of this discussion. Says,
that's my brother.
I know that's right. We know. He's vocal on here, okay? He said
Right.
It is essential that an artist and writers do music that targets the format of their favorite station. Then he has another comment. He said, there's a difference between stealing a song and using a song. James Cleveland used Gladys Knight's You're the Best Thing, and even used the same title on his version of her song. Give credit where credit is due. There is enough money in the industry for everybody. It's supposed to be music ministry. And no matter how original a song it is, it's going to be similar to another song somewhere. Along thank you for those comments, and anyone can respond to those. And after responding to those, along with what Brandon was saying, so from the artist side that may be out there listening, so selecting the producer is mission critical. How should you select a producer? Do you just Google? Do you just pick someone because you see their names in the credits and you think you should work with this producer no matter what? How should an artist realistically pick a producer, honestly?
I mean, let me say this. That question, wow, it's that question is kind of challenging to answer, but most producers are chosen either by word of mouth or recommendation. You know, just like engineers. You know, if I needed an engineer, my first line would be somebody that somebody knows, and that's basically, you know, kind of like how that works. Um, you know, good to see you, Martin. I see you. I see you snuck on. Martin Christie, a good friend of mine from Brooklyn, New York. Very great producer as well. He snuck on here.
Yes, now that's true, but you know, depending on your sound, depending on the record, should you just pick, you know, anyone randomly? What about, like you said, okay, word of mouth, somebody refers you. You should know more about this person, right? You should ask to hear their music. You should know a little bit more about the person, how they work, their methods of working, their you know, personality type of the producer that you're working with, their work ethic, how long they estimate it's going to take to finish your working with you. You know, has anybody ever worked with them in you know, when it comes to that?
Yeah,
I mean, all of those things can have because all of a sudden your budget can expand depending on some of those variables. I mean, you know, or you know, you've got a producer whose bend is more praise and worship, but you've got a traditional sound, or they're more choir, and you're, you know, a neo soul gospel artist. You know what I'm saying? There's, even though somebody just
totally
recommends
agree.
you, it doesn't mean I should go with you, right?
Sister Linda.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I believe when you, I can only speak for myself. Me and Brother Willie was sort of God led, and we became friends. And we, as Brother Mitchell said, the relationship means a whole lot when you're dealing with recording and trying to get that original sound that you're looking for. But um, per se, to get someone to work with in the studio to record you and produce you, I think you need, like you said before, is to learn that person, get to know them. And it makes a difference when you gain the relationship versus just go in the studio and record and not know the person that's recording, because you don't actually know what he can do until after the project is done. And so it will affect both people um, if you don't, if you don't gain some type of relationship and to try to understand what they're doing as an artist so you can be more effective as well, so they won't make their job as just as hard. It'll make it lighter, as we talked about. Some can sing and some can't sing, but and working in that producer helping that artist, giving him a chance to do workshops and advising them to do certain things, and that's what Willie did for me.
Can I say something? Um, that's a big loaded question. There's so many variables. Research is very key because you can't just look at the back of an album and see an engineer and you say, okay, well, let's just say if you're a more urban artist and you look at the back of a Mary Mary project and you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna talk to that producer. And you're looking at it from the commercial standpoint because you want the commercial success, but you're saying traditional gospel. That's a whole different genre. So it's a lot to unpack that statement because, like you're saying, you pick an engineer, you have to go into a relationship with the engineer, which leads to what you were saying, Linda. That's it's so much different directions you can go with that. Credibility is another thing. So back to what Greg was saying, ask around, you check around. Okay, do you know this guy? Credibility wise, another thing is, just because somebody made a record, that necessarily might not mean they did all what they say they did. Their name could have just got thrown up there for credits, and behind the scenes, they didn't do all of that stuff. So you really have to do your own digging and researching to find out if it's really legit.
So I have a question. So because I understand the relationship piece, but I've seen a lot of relationships fall apart because of these kind of business deals just going wrong. So what happens when said artist gets into a production conversation with someone who they have a relationship with, and they let the relationship influence their decision to work with their producer? And then you put up the initial deposit, you pay the band, and you get your files back, and the files are not what you expect. They're underwhelming. What does the artist do at that point? Do they count their losses and move on? Do you go to your friend and say, yo, it's not working out, I think I'm going to go in a different direction? Do you give them the money back? Like, what happens in that point? And I ask that question because I believe that the artist picking the producer is the most important part of the process. Knowing what that producer can do, knowing what their schedules are, what they like, what they listen to, who they use, their integrity. I think all that goes into play. But also their production, like the sonic presentation of their production also matters. And if it's not something that, if said producer is not producing what it is that, a certain artist wants, but they still go with them out of relationship, then what happens when you get your files back and it's just not what you expected? It's completely underwhelming. Then what happens?
Well, hopefully as an artist, you should be kind of like there during the process, before it gets to its finished state and they just get the files back and say, here it is. You're there during that process to, kind of help, give some direction, or just to say, oh yeah, I like that, or no, I don't like that, and those kind of things. Usually when I'm working with somebody, they're there during the whole process. And even if they're not there, as I'm working on it, I'm sending them files just so that they can hear it, because I want them to be happy, but so I usually don't let it get to that. Point.
But don't you have some contractual?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Don't you have some kind of contractual agreement with your artist that you do like so many edits or something? Otherwise, you could be forever.
Right.
Well, I mean,
you should.
But I just never ran into that where somebody wasn't happy and I just had to keep doing stuff over and over. I mean, if we working on a song and they just not happy with something, then I'm probably not going. It's like, okay, we're gonna leave it right here. I might finish this song for you, but we're not gonna go no further.
But Chris, that happened to me one time. I worked on a song And I worked on the song, and what it was, it wasn't the production. It was the fact that this person was a writer, so they wanted different people to sing on the song. So I brought the different people in the studio. They were never happy with the person brought in. So finally, I said, you know what? Since you only paid me a certain amount of money, I'm gonna give you that money back. And do me a favor, don't ever call me again for any work, because this has been far more and this has been far more frustrating with the little money that you paid me to get this work done. Now that's the sad part of that's the sad part of the relationship side. Because sometimes when you want to have a relationship with somebody, let me calm down. Sometimes when you want to have a relationship with somebody, and when you give them what you call a hookup, Chris, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Darren, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you want to hook somebody up, sometimes those are the people that want all the bells and whistles. And then when you tell them, okay, look, if you want the Kirk Franklin sound, you don't want to pay for that. So I got to give you, you know, I got to give you the Temptation Broke sound. I got to give you that. I can't give you this when you don't have those finances. It's going to be really good because if my name is on it, it's got to be acceptable. Because if not, people are going to talk about me, and I don't want people to talk about me. So I'm just saying that's just my opinion, Chris.
One thing I like to say
Yeah,
too is that
mhm.
sometimes I'm sorry. One thing I like to say too is sometimes I think a lot depends on the artist being able to translate to the producer what it is that they want. Sometimes they don't know the musical terminology, so we can't get in their head, to actually give them what they want because we don't know what they're trying to express to us. So I think that has a lot to do with it also.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
When I invest my time with somebody, first thing I do when they call me up, first of all, I find out, how did you contact me? How did you find out about me? That's the first thing. Second thing, I was like, before I do anything, we sit down and we have a talk. I want to find out what you like. What is it that I do that attracted you to my sound, or to what my standard of operating is? And I have a serious discussion up front about how the money is handled. And so that there's no questions. I tell them who my attorney is, and this is how. And it's funny when you say attorney, all of a sudden it's like they stop, because I'm like, yes, it's on that level. If you want it to be on that level, all right. If you want just somebody to, just throw some music together for you, then I might not be the person for you. That being said, I know a lot of other producers. And so what I end up doing is, maybe I might not be the person for you, but I got somebody that might be able to work with you, because we're all in a community of different producers. I listened to the Prince channel on Sirius recently, and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis was talking about, everybody thought there was a rivalry between Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, and LA and Babyface. And Jam was like, no, they're our friends. We want them to be just as successful as we are. So they end up telling them to go to Clarence Avant and all these different people in the industry, because they gave them the same help. You do the same thing. And that can be on any level in the music industry, because you want to make sure they're going to get the right person. And a lot of times when you refer to somebody and it comes out as a very good project, they come back to you and say thanks, and so your reputation hasn't been compromised, and now you still help somebody else. But I always have this big initial meeting with the person. I listen to what they want. I listen to who do you listen to, who do you want to compare your sound to, or who do you want to be in the category of? It's like, do you want to be an Edwin Hawkins type thing, or or do you want to be a Kurt Franklin's? Like somebody said earlier about the difference between a trendsetter and a trend follower. Always ask the source of, okay, why is this the trends you talking about earlier, the praise and worship? Who started it? Because at some point nobody was doing it, and now all of a sudden they're doing it. Who started the source? Remember, Kurt Franklin first came out, nobody was sampling and using other people's type of music, and then everybody started doing it. Find the source, but always ask them, are you going to be the trendsetter, or are you going to be a follower? And when you step out there, you're going to have to accept what happens. Somebody might feel you, some people don't. The world is big enough that a lot of people was gonna love what you're doing. But to go back, not to get off what I was saying, have that meeting initially with the person or the people that you're getting involved with, you know, because you end up frustrating yourself, just like my man said earlier, you know, I've had those headaches and said, you know, what do I need to do to eliminate that headache? I'm gonna have an initial meeting, and we're gonna find out from day one what's going on, and then that eliminates all the other crap that happens afterwards.
So I have a comment again from Facebook. Dennis Bird Sr., your producer should be selected based on your objective. Are you doing a project for personal satisfaction, or are you targeting marketing and airplay? Some producers can give you a good sound, but cannot give you a project that meets industry standards. And that's very important. You've given some very important tips thus far, the critiques. I so agree with that.
Yeah.
Amen to that. And before your final mix, you need to let ears hear it before the final mix is done. You need to get critiques of your music, picking your producer being most important, that it is, you know, you are developing a relationship with this person, having everything in writing, going to good workshops to get information. I think all of that's some really good tips.
Yeah.
You and I just had that conversation.
I'm on it right now. Like I did a project. I have an EP release on that's released in August 11th. And when I first did it, I actually was letting a lot of young people, church people. I was doing it in a church. I was letting people back at home, and I went out and I set out on big faith. But this next round that I'm doing, I'm really looking forward to actually doing what y'all saying, get done to it, because I don't want to be out here and I'm doing good work and I'm not connecting with the right people. So this that I'm almost like somebody said about, I put something out there. Yes, I was letting people hear it, but it's an awesome thing. So if you get a chance to hear it. But this next phase that I'm working on is to conquer what we're hearing, right? What I'm hearing from you right now. So if it is the workshop, like Miss Linwood or Miss Greenwood, she's always inviting me to different workshops to actually go the right steps. So this next project, if anyone out here is interested, I would love producing this. Yes.
Linda, did you have another comment on Facebook?
Well, we were gonna, oh yes, thank you, Charles. Let me give that for Pastor. Get me right quick. Trying to sum these up. Dennis Bird Sr., I love you. Thank you so much for sharing. Your producer should be selected. Oh, well, no, we did that one based on your, you know, I did give you his last comment. So we can wrap up like we were saying. Go ahead.
All right. So one of the last things she wanted to talk about in regards to producing pretty much in the pandemic, how is this pretty much affecting everyone? I'm sure everyone has to come up with more creative ways to produce studio time and studio spacing and all of that. So anyone have anything you want to interject or comment?
Well, I've only had a few sessions since the pandemic, but it really hasn't changed anything different, because usually when I'm recording, my studio's in my house, in my basement. It's a very small space. I usually don't have a lot of people, you know, come in at one time to record. Usually I have one person in the booth at one time. Only time I have more than that is when I have my whole choir here. I may have 3 or 4 in at the most at one time, but I haven't really had to do that. But, you know, my normal way of doing it is one person at a time in the booth. So that really hasn't, you know, changed. And I haven't done a whole lot, but the few sessions that I did have done, that's how I do it. And then when it comes to the band laying tracks, well, I usually have my son-in-law does the most of the drum and bass guitar work. So he'll come here to lay drums. Then he'll do the bass at his studio, or sometimes he'll do the drums at his studio. So, and then guitar, all of that other extra stuff, I send it out, and then they send it back to me. It's, musicians that I trust that's going to give me what I want. I have a list of them that I would call for, certain songs that I know that they would give me the right feel, and I send them the track and they record it and send it back. So that's kind of that's how I've been doing it before the pandemic. So
Yeah,
it's been the same.
My experience has been a little different because I've had a lot of sessions since the pandemic, and when the pandemic first started, it was different. But as it kind of led up, I also do a lot of pre-production things in my home. But when I'm recording someone else, there's a commercial, place that I go. So basically, what we've tried to interject, because I've even had a recording session with about 30 people. And how we did that was we did the social distancing thing. We spread them out, and we had a bunch of Lysol. A bunch of Lysol wipes, a bunch of hand sanitizers. Oh, it was serious. It was like that. So basically, when you come in the room, that room is sanitized. When you leave the room, it's sanitized. And basically, we've been able to kind of function, and I've been able to get a lot of work done during the pandemic. I went to a bar. It's interesting. I went to a barber today, and it's like they wanted to do the temperature check. So I said, you know what? Maybe I need to get one of those thermometers. You know what I'm saying? So when you come, so if I have a big session, like, listen, we're gonna check your temperature at the door.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying.
I've been extremely busy since the pandemic, and it kind of threw me off because it really picked up because a lot of people got furloughed and they had time at a time that they couldn't before when they had to work. So I've been extremely fortunate. The facility that I'm in is 2 studios, one extremely large studio with a large room, control room, and live room. So we'll do the live stuff there. And everybody's spread out. And then I end up getting either one person or a couple of people. They have masks on, and then I bring the session in my room and I start mixing or start overdubbing if needed. And like the gentleman said earlier, I have other musicians send me their drum files or drum stems, or bass stems or guitar stems, and we get it all done. But honestly, since the pandemic, it's actually, unfortunately to say this, has been booming because now people are ready to, they're gearing up for next year or getting up for later in the year to really start putting their dreams out. So it's been interesting on my end.
Yeah, for me, it's been like a mixture of what everyone has said. It's been steady work. Like, work hasn't stopped at all. But it's also been a time for me to hone some other skills that I have been around, but I haven't sat in the seat of. Specifically for me, speaking on video, for my church, we've been having to restructure exactly how we do our streams and things. So been working on the video side with either OBS or Ecamm, and then, setting up church for multi-track recording so that we have a post-production after we, do our services on Saturdays. We go home. We do 1 week before. So we record on Saturdays, and then I edit on Monday, have the stems sent out Monday night, and then have the guys like adding or overdubbing, whatever, and then going into mixing, using Ableton, virtual choirs, virtual concerts. It's just been like kind of getting it all working in tandem. Sometimes as producers, we can get locked into the audio side and make sure we have audio side locked in, but not understanding how video works in tandem with them. So using time code for virtual concerts and, you know, all that kind of stuff, just, you know, getting it recorded. And that's been my life. Using different DAWs, like getting Logic Pro X, all the different changes locked in for that versus Ableton, which is a little more steady. You know, all those kind of things. It's just been, for me, it's been more expansive of learning and honing tools that I necessarily didn't have, like video. So that's how the pandemic has definitely helped me.
Whatever he just said, I don't know any of those things he just named, but they sound great.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all of that, and I've been doing the same kind of stuff too.
I picked up some TV and film work because of it.
To get my project out and things, I've actually started something called a pop-up drive-through music experience, where I'm actually setting up. I'm using a parking lot of people. I'm talking to different places, and it's a new project. So, you know, I'm like, hey, listen, I got a tent. I set up my tent and I do the pop-up drive-through music experience for like an hour and a half, do social media, Facebook Live, however that is, record it, and then I just come back. But so that opportunity has been, this month we're doing it 2 times, you know, so we've been doing it since after Mother's Day, you know, when they first allowed us to just congregate a little bit with the 10 people. So we pass out the PPEs to everybody that pop up on us. We giving, like this month, we giving out book sacks with essential products. So we I can say the pandemic actually changed it, but it made the reason and the purpose to make more difference when we actually hosting our events now.
Awesome.
You have a couple of comments. During the pandemic, spray without ceasing. That's Dennis Bird Sr. And I wanted to ask, you know, some of the things Brandon was talking about, like setting up your church for multi-track recording. Is that the future? Is that where we're going? What do you think? I mean, we're gonna be in this setting for a while. What do you think?
A lot of churches have been doing it for a while. In fact,
I about to say, yeah, that's yeah, multi-track is yesterday's news for your church at this point.
Well, for
I believe,
some churches,
yeah.
For some churches.
Yeah, but and only reason why I say yesterday's news is because at this point, technology has advanced so far that having the necessary tools to accomplish multi there who can help you facilitate getting this set up. You can get an X32 for, you know, $2,000.
Yep.
Plug that thing up and you have multi-track recording. It's that simple. Literally that simple. Just that goes into the future for your church setup. So I think for streaming purposes, which is what we're all doing. I mean, churches were streaming. I mean, streaming faith was around when I was in middle school. I'm 30 years old now. So if we're just getting a handle on streaming, then I believe that a lot of churches were a little behind on getting to where we are now. But I mean, thank God that something has happened to open up everybody's mind so that the guys like us who go to our pastors and be like, man, we need to get a new board, or we need to have a studio set up. We need to get a 3-way split or 2-way split. We need to have that stuff going. Now the pastors really understand the pure necessity for having these things. So when a pandemic or something like this happens, we're not, you know, scrambling at the bits to get good mixes and buy plugins and get boards and get mics. All that stuff is taken care of bit by bit. So to Charles's point, it is brand new for a lot of churches, but the technology has been available for us to do this for years, at least 10.
You can go on Indeed.com and find jobs specifically in the church realm looking for engineers and looking for sound live and looking for people that do lights that are, as far as the pay, just as compatible as, working a job at say a convention center or event place, because the skills required are the same.
What's more important, when it comes to streaming the service, the audio or the video?
Both.
Yeah, they work in tandem completely.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I would say if it ain't sounding right, because sometimes I might, be tuned in, but I may look away. If it ain't sounding right, I can't even keep it on. But if it's sounding right, I might even be looking at it. So, but I don't want to say audio is more important, because they both are important. And the audio is very important, because you can have great video and then the sound just be jacked up, and it just.
Case in point, we gotta shout out the Prince of Gospel. No, Pastor John P. Key. I'm
Oh my
sorry.
God.
Hands down, hands down. A lot of the virtual concerts that we have seen, hands down, his sound and his video was off the chain. So
he's been doing that for a while, though.
It is so, oh my, it was amazing. It was amazing. And when I watched it from my computer, it's like I was in it felt like a concert.
Yeah.
And I had my, speakers blasting. It sounded great. And it was so much better. It was so much better there than some of the Instagram stuff, the Instagram verses, But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day.
Somebody did their homework. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And if John P. Key, who I've known a ton of musicians throughout Greensboro and North Carolina that have played with him throughout the years, he's going to get the best, hands down. Every musician I've seen that's come through, every singer that come through from John P. Key, he's going to get the best. And you take your time there and you cherish it and you move on, because he's constantly looking at the best and the next thing that's coming out, whether it's in his production, whether it's in his music, or his musicianship. He's always striving to make sure his brand is excellent, because he's a brand. He's not just a gospel singer. He's a brand.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you all for being here on this evening and sharing all of your wisdom and your knowledge. I'm sure that someone is taking something that you said and is going to benefit from that. And now Brandon is home and in his studio.
See him in the studio now.
Hilarious to me.
No, for a minute. I was just like, man, I'll stay on the phone.
And now
I sat
you
down.
have just an amazing mic. Don't try to get on here now with the mic. We're wrapping up now.
Tell you, he ready to talk too.
No, I'm good. I'm good. It's been great.
We're smiling, nice hearing you and seeing you all at the same time.
I got to ask the question, what part of PG County you in? Or
I live up in Marlboro.
I'm from Oxon Hill. So.
Oh yeah.
And I'm in Camp Springs.
Oh, you right around the corner, Allentown Road.
Yeah.
Look at all these DMV folks.
All day.
Wow.
What a connection. Thank you all so much. This was really valuable. Charles, thank you so much for moderating. Did a good job. All of you. Appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of the weekend. Great week. And we will get together again. We do this usually like every other weekend. We got a session coming up again about Christmas music, because I have to remind you all about the Christmas music. Everybody gonna laugh on here because they know I'm serious about that. We're gonna get Charles to make a Christmas song. I don't know how, but I'm gonna put him on somebody else's record. Please, somebody ask Charles to be on.
Hey, Charles, I got some songs for you, man. I got some arrangements for you. Get at
Thank you, Greg.
I
Because
wish you all the
Charles
best.
needs
I got some arrangements for you. You will love it, man. I'm telling you.
He gonna understand this one day. We gonna help him. We gonna help him. Ask him to be a feature.
I'm not the Christmas.
Linda, can I suggest something?
Yes, sir.
If you have not done this topic yet, there needs to be a topic between producer, artist, and radio. Producer.
You really want to go there?
Producer,
Lord.
I mean, here is the
Are
deal.
you sure?
We're gonna pray first, and we're gonna ask a good pastor to pray
the thing about it
first.
is we have to go there because we have to have this we have to have this relationship and this
Yeah,
connection.
you're
There is
right
a
about it.
disconnect. I'm sorry to bring this up and we get ready to get off,
Yeah,
but
see how you do? He loves to throw these rocks at the end. He
there
always
is
doing
a
this.
disconnect between radio producers and artists. There is
Well,
a disconnect.
amen. It show you right.
And I can tell you what the issue is. I can tell you what I can tell you one of the issues. So I'll leave the issue on the table and then we can discuss it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
The issue is when the labels had the relationships with radio, it was not independent. But now that we have more independent artists, it's hard to have, I'm not talking about you, Linda, but it's hard to have relationships with radio because we don't have sometimes the budget, the radio budget.
Well, that's a fact. As a, as an independent artist, oh yeah, it is very tough. But
so I
mean,
think we can
there is a
discuss
bridge there.
Yeah, that's what we need to talk about. So there you go. That's what we're gonna talk about.
Gonna leave it right there.
The bridge
I
between
think
the
the powers
producer,
that be-
artist, and radio.
Charles is an independent artist, and Brandon, works with independent art. Indie artists are majors
But
now.
I've been blessed to have budgets.
Well, bless the Lord.
So
That's a whole topic. Just leave
Yeah,
that right there. You got
I
it.
just want to give you that for the next one.
Yeah, I've been blessed to have a radio rep and all of those other things, but unfortunately, it is what it is, and a lot of times the people who do work at these radio stations that are just on-air personalities don't have that kind of authority.
That's right.
To even play the records.
How
So
about
you
that?
having an on-air jock on absolutely may do nothing for that conversation. There's a bigger issue that goes above the jock's head.
Well, there's a whole lot of dynamics with
There's
all of
so
that.
many dynamics to that goes beyond that.
But you
So
do
that's
need to have a budget, because if you have a budget to produce your record, how can you not have a budget to market this music and get it out? I don't understand that.
I think because most people don't understand all of the mechanics of it. They don't understand that you need a radio rep, you may need a publicist.
Correct. Just like with your
At this point,
producer
you
role.
need-
Yeah, right.
At this point, you need a budget for social media because you have to boost ads, you have
That's
to boost
right.
Facebook, all these other things. So it's so many things that are required.
It is. It's a whole lot more than just walking in and handing somebody a record and thinking that it goes at that point. You're exactly right. Understanding the organizational chart, understanding the roles, and having the right people in the right roles who can do the right thing on both sides, on the production side as well as on the marketing side. And we end on that note, right?
Yes, make it happen.
And we
Linda.
come back and talk
Make it
about
happen.
all of that. And thank you all again. Have a great rest of the weekend. We will do this again in a couple of weeks, and you all take care.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bless y'all.
Thank you all. Great one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.